So here's what I would say. The options that Dave McMenamin put out there are Ty Lue if he gets let go. He said this is on the Dan Patrick Show. And J.J. Redick. So you mentioned the J.J. Redick stuff. We kind of touched on that briefly. Look, people are going to say I'm just in the bag for J.J. because I'm like friendly with him and I've worked with him for a while. I think J.J.'s brilliant. Like I'm not surprised that he is quickly ascended to where he's ascended to.
As a broadcaster?
Correct.
Okay.
Because he is a thinking man's like personality. Mm-hmm. The reason basketball people love JJ, and I mean like hardcore diehard basketball fans, people that know ball, Cappy, like DeAndre.
That's right.
Like me.
That's right.
And well, you're a savant too, I guess.
Yeah, right. That's what LeBron says.
Yeah. So they love him because he doesn't want to do the like JJ literally goes on First Take and says, why are we doing this stupid conversation of who's the GOAT? Like, why don't we just talk about like what's actually happened last night? You know what I'm saying? Like,
and that's going to translate into being a great coach?
Well, can you let me finish?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's what you're saying.
Well, I'm talking about first his media career.
Oh.
Okay. But I think he garnered he was always respected for the most part by the guys he played with in his 15 years because he had to work really hard. He was a great college player, but in the NBA, he didn't even play his first couple years. Stan Van Gundy would not even play him until he felt he was ready. Mm-hmm. So he had to work his ass off just to become a rotation player and then eventually became a starter in this league, et cetera, and became one of the best three-point shooters. So guys respect his grind and also respect his acumen, right? Mm-hmm. Like they respect him for what he's able to do, like the way he had to think the game in a way that other guys, because of their athleticism, where he lacked, he had to kind of overcome some of the lack of athleticism with his brain, right? So so there's that. And by the way, I'm not comparing the two necessarily directly, but John and I talked about this during Crosstalk. I said Pat Riley barely was an assistant. We joked, right? Chicky Baby was giving him the fist, for a couple years on the broadcast. He was an assistant for like a year.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, Jerry West was in that front office to help. And
okay, wait, but let me finish the comparison real quick, and then you can get into this because I do think that's a valid point. But here's what I will tell you: Pat Riley also an incredible college basketball player, and Pat Riley in the NBA was a role player who had to fight and scratch and claw for every inch he got in the NBA as a role player. So what I'm saying is those type of guys. Phil Jackson, by the way, was not a great NBA player. He was a good role player.
By the way, put Ty Lue into that category,
correct,
George.
So what I'm saying is some guys just have it. And I think that he has that, similar to some of the guys I mentioned. Not to say he's going to become those guys, because maybe he flops. But at least from the outside looking in, and even from the inside a little, because I do know the guy a little bit, I feel like he's got the right personality. I think he can relate to guys in a way that older guys can't necessarily relate to. This is a very strange time in the league where we've got these older guys that we've already illustrated, LeBron, Kevin Durant, all these type of guys who played with him and respect him. And then the younger guys who saw him play, but he's not old, so he can relate to them in a way that most of the other coaches can't.
Listen, I'm not here to knock J.J. Redick and the possibility that he might be a really good NBA head coach. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible.
I think it's definitely worth an interview.
Okay, listen, I have no problem with an interview. And if they hired J.J. Redick, if the Lakers actually hired J.J. Redick, here's what my thought would be. All the things you talked about, he grinded, he worked hard. He had to do things differently. He had to work harder. Maybe he wasn't the most talented guy. Maybe he was restricted by a coach. He is respected by guys. His media career has made him perhaps more popular, has made his brain that much more noticeable for people that didn't know what kind of a player he was behind the scenes. All of those things are fair. I can buy all of those things. And listen, there are examples of guys who have gone from not being a coach to all of a sudden being a first-time head coach or manager. I mean, I think about John Lynch as a general manager with the 49ers. Listen.
He had never done it. And
right.
People thought that he was, when they hired him, people thought, oh, they're nuts doing that.
Well, I mean, he was a great player. He was a really fine broadcaster. And they put him into the general manager role, and look what the 49ers have turned into. He's become a much better general manager than we knew. I'll give you another example. This is way from left field here. But I got a buddy of mine by the name of Brad Ausmus.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad Ausmus was a really good catcher in Major League Baseball. He never managed before. He managed Team Israel in the World Baseball Classic because his great-great-grandmother was Jewish, and that made him eligible to manage Team Israel. I'm being serious.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, he managed for the first time in his career with the Detroit Tigers, and he had success. He didn't win a World Series, but he had success. On the flip side of that, you think about a guy like Steve Nash, okay? Steve Nash was a guy that was an excellent player, an MVP caliber player, a guy who worked real hard, had great skills, knew the game, was essentially handpicked by Kevin Durant, okay? And we all know how that one turned out. I would say this, that J.J. Redick, if he becomes the head coach of the Lakers, and I'm not ruling it out at all, it's because he's handpicked by LeBron.
Oh, okay, here's what I would also say. The biggest difference between J.J. Redick and Steve Nash personality-wise, Steve Nash did not want confrontation. He never, as a player, he wasn't that. As a coach, he wasn't that. J.J. Redick, no worries about. He's okay to have a tough conversation with you. He did it as a player, and he'll do it as a coach.
Yeah, but listen. I guess what I would say,
and
is
that's a quality that's important as a coach.
I'll buy that as an important quality. But I would say this to you: that if J.J. Redick becomes the Lakers coach, he'll know it. You'll know it. I'll know it. Everybody will know it. That he's LeBron's go-to.
And do you know
guy.
how Pat Riley became the Lakers coach?
I feel like Jerry West didn't want to coach the team anymore, and
no. Because remember, it was Paul Westhead who was the coach,
right?
and
Paul
got let
became
go.
the coach.
No,
yeah,
it was Magic wanted him as the guy.
Okay, I don't,
and that worked out just fine.
It did work out fine, but let's also remember that Pat had a great team.
Oh, no question.
He had a lot of great players,
right?
Okay, and they took to him right away because of some of the qualities you're talking about with JJ, which is fresh out of the game. I would say this though. I would rather have a guy who's already been a somewhat proven commodity. You know, so I guess if it came down to this,
look, if Ty Lue's available, he should be your first choice.
Right. If Ty Lue's
I'm not debating that. Like,
right.
I'm just talking about, because the Ty Lue one is obvious to me. Because you screwed that up the first time, you should make amends for that. But if he's not available, which, by the way, I don't think is a given, okay?
Oh, I don't think it's a given at all.
Everyone thinks, like, you think Steve Ballmer with a year left on his deal is going to just hand over Ty Lue to the Lakers?
Very good point.
That's out of here.
That's the point right there, though, is that's just it. Is that you could, listen, the Clippers were an embarrassment last night, okay? They lost by 30 points at home.
I mean, James Harden did what James Harden does in the playoffs a lot.
Let me tell you something. I don't even want to talk about James Harden because he screwed me on Prize Picks last night, okay? But I'll get into that. The Clippers humiliated themselves last night. But here's the thing. If you're Steve Ballmer, and Steve, shout out to you because I know you're driving down the road listening because everybody is. Steve Ballmer knows that if he lets Ty Lue go, he's immediately going to the Lakers. It's kind of like the Angels. They knew that as soon as Ohtani was a free agent, he was going to the Dodgers. And guess what? The Angels, I mean, you're like, whoa, are they playing? Is the season going on? I mean, Ohtani and the Dodgers, they take all the coverage. I'm just telling you this. You do not want to give up Ty Lue to the Lakers.
No, 100%, and I don't think they will. By the way, there was a lot of rumors that Ty Lue might have wanted to have gone to coach Milwaukee or Phoenix last year. And and again, I don't have this locked down, but there were plenty of rumblings about that and rumors about that. And I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just telling you what I heard second and third hand, okay? And what I also heard second and third hand was the Clippers were like, no, we value Ty too much, and he's under contract for 2 more years.
Hey, I'll just say, last thought on Ty Lue. If I'm the Clippers, I'm not firing Ty Lue, not just because I don't want him to immediately walk across town and go to the Lakers, but I'm not putting what's happening with the Clippers on Ty Lue. I'm putting what's happening on the Clippers on Kawhi Leonard, and I'm putting it on. It's
a complete disaster.
It's ridiculous. I mean, you keep paying this guy over and over and over again. He plays.
I would have rather have paid Paul George.
Right.
At least he's more available.
But he plays in games, Kawhi Leonard, and you go, okay, I understand on both sides of the floor why Kawhi Leonard is considered a top 5 player in the NBA. But you know what? You get to this point in the season and you can't be available for your team. It's a complete waste. So I don't put the Clippers, even if they get knocked out this weekend, which I think they're going to, even if they get knocked out, I'm not putting that on Ty Lue.
Agreed. I think it's just the whole situation is a mess there. And, I don't know what answers they will have from a coaching perspective moving forward. And I think they have a lot of crazy decisions to make to begin with.